Good Sunday morning, Northeast Ohio, as the field in next year's race for governor continues to grow. Former State Attorney General Richard Cordray throwing his hat into the Democratic race this week. Cordray was serving a 5-year term as the director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in Washington. He told me this week he felt the time was right to leave.
I only had a few months left on my term. There were pieces that we were trying to accomplish that were very important, like the payday lending rule and the arbitration rule, which got overturned in the Senate. But the payday lending rule, making that law of the land, was about the last important thing I thought I could do. And there was a fight developing back here in Ohio that I thought was really important. And I think it's a fight over the soul of our country and of our state, and I wanted to be a part of that. You
get into the race 8-9 months after some of your opponents have entered it. Congresswoman Marcia Fudge said in endorsing Betty Sutton back in October that the time essentially had passed for people to get into the race.
So I think everybody has their own perspective on the clock and the calendar. I believe that there's plenty of time in this race, and I'm going to be and am getting off to a very fast start. In my case, unlike the other candidates, I've actually been elected statewide to 2 different offices. I've held those offices. I've worked with people all over the state on solving problems. People know my track record and can see it. I will be reminding them of it. So I think that gives me an edge.
Mike DeWine and John Husted joined forces last week. Have you reached out, or your campaign reached out to any of your opponents, maybe to look who your possible running mate would be?
So I don't think that this is the time to do that. I just announced my candidacy this week. I think it'd be the height of arrogance for me to go to other candidates and suggest that they should do something or other. All of that will sort itself out in good time. The most important thing for me to do is get off to a fast start and show that this is a campaign that's going to be a force and a campaign to be reckoned with. Mike DeWine and I in 2010 ran to almost a dead heat. He beat me by a point in a year that was a very difficult year for Democratic candidates nationally. It's going to be a very different year next year, and I'm looking forward to the rematch.
Cordray was part of a ticket in 2006 that saw Democrats win all but one of the statewide seats. The lone seat Republicans won was state auditor. So let me ask you, who won it?
Anyone? Anyone?
Current Lieutenant Governor Mary Taylor, who is also running for governor. Taylor telling me this week last week's merger between DeWine and Husted is actually good for her.
The way I see it is, I believe that the field in this governor's race just narrowed, and John Husted dropped out of the governor's race.
They'll go after the establishment vote then. Jim Renacci is trying to align himself with the Trump supporters. Who are the Mary Taylor voters?
That's a great question, because that is our political strategy, and it has been from the beginning before we even knew exactly what this race was going to look like. Identify who a Mary Taylor voter is, put a campaign strategy in place to reach out to them, engage them, and then ultimately turn them out to vote. I don't think that it's so easy that you can say you're either, you know, what you call it, a Kasich establishment voter, or you're a Trump voter. I don't think that they're entirely different. So my strategy truly is to understand what a Mary Taylor voter looks like. And so I think it's a combination.
Well, something that will most likely come across the desk of the next governor is something that was argued this week before the Supreme Court: sports betting. Several states have already passed the legislation needed to approve sports gambling if the Supreme Court allows it. Ohio has not. Technically, they may not have to. The ballot question approved by Ohio voters in 2009, clearing the way for the state's 4 casinos, did more than just set locations and distribution of funds. It included this. Point number 5, which basically greenlights for Ohio casinos any gambling approved by neighboring states. Well, just over a month ago, Pennsylvania signed into law a measure that essentially gives the okay for sports betting there should the Supreme Court allow it, which in turn, some would say, applies to Ohio. Look for Ohio lawmakers to fight the casinos, though, on that point, since sports betting isn't a table game or slot. The Supreme Court case deals with New Jersey's fight over a 1992 federal law that prevents states that didn't have approved sports betting at the time from ever getting it. President Trump, then a casino owner, told me at the time it didn't make sense.
It's vital to keeping your taxes low, it's vital to the senior citizens, and it's vital to putting the bookies out of business.
New Jersey Governor Chris Christie says if they can get the green light, they can have a sports book up and running in the state in 2 weeks. In Ohio, it would be up to the Casino Control Commission to write and approve the regulations for sports betting. They say they are monitoring the situation. And then Gilbert's Jack Entertainment also continuing to monitor the situation, telling me that they support the concept of sports betting, but at this point it's simply too early to comment. Now, in case you wondered how that would all play out if Gilbert were to own an NBA team and a casino, well, he wouldn't be alone. There have been several NBA owners that have full or partial interest in casinos. In this case, The Jack property simply wouldn't be able to take bets on Cavalier games. With Democracy 2017, I'm John Kosich. Enjoy your Sunday.